Evening, folks. It's Wednesday. It's 9 o'clock. It's the usual around the NFL from the UK or around the UK from the NFL or whatever way you're looking at calling it. Basically, it's the NFL with accents. You're lumping with me this week. Unfortunately, you haven't got any of the other professional co-hosts. You've got myself, Gary. Groovy's here. We've joined from good teams win, great teams. I forgot what the C is, Paul.
Cover.
Help me out.
Almost.
There we go. Almost. I was almost there. We got that from he's joining us. Fortunately enough, and he's going to give us his take on the Cowboys and stuff. And we got Adam from the Transatlantic Titans. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I mean, it kind of seemed fitting. The first couple of weeks we were talking about teams and where they are and the potential of going worst to first, et cetera, et cetera. And so obviously we were reaching out, and appreciate you guys have got your own podcast, and we'll definitely give you a plug, and you can post where that comes on in a little while. But so yeah, how are you feeling about the Titans up to this point? Then you've got some storylines bubbling under, haven't you?
Well, the usual sense of dread that comes with being a Titans fan. I mean, you say worst to first. Normally with us, it's mediocre to mediocre. With years of Jeff Fisher as a head coach, that image goes with the territory. But it's a roller coaster being an NFL fan, isn't it? And about an hour earlier, news is breaking of a potentially devastating Traylon Burks injury.
Yeah.
When everything it had just been going a bit too well. You just have to be.
Yeah, I suppose it had been quiet, hadn't it? It had been just everything had been regulation, if you like, normal. No big news, no big dramas, nothing kind of up or down. And suddenly I saw that just before we jumped on air that is there any more news on it? I heard he'd just gone down and got carted off, but everyone seems to go down and get carted off from practice. Has there been any bigger news or any more breaking news on that?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, you see, I mean, you're both on Twitter, so you're familiar with this. If you're a 49ers fan, you probably follow several different beat writers for 49ers. The Cowboys, it'd be the same. I'm the same. Suddenly, there's 17 tweets in a row describing how he's fallen over, which body part he's clutching, and you just hope for the best at this point. Yeah, and I mean, some are more optimistic than others. I think there are a few beat writers out there that seem to take a weird pleasure in bad things happening, but every team's got those.
They certainly seem to make sort of, should we say, tweets which are certainly guaranteed to click on. There's a few beat writers that like to exaggerate somewhat, isn't there? Yeah,
exactly. So we don't know anything at this point, though. I mean, was he clutching his left knee or was he clutching his calf? The calf sounds better if it was that.
Yeah, it sounded like it was. It was a contact one, or is it kind of? I heard he fell or he came down after a catch or something, right? So
yeah,
could be contact, could be a bang on the knee, could be who knows, right?
Yeah, it's crossing fingers at this stage, isn't it? And though it was a non-contact injury, but it sounded like he went to ground when making a catch. He didn't collide with a person, but collided with the turf. It was during a joint practice with the Vikings, which, I mean, I'm never sure how I feel about those by themselves. Obviously, it's pre-season at the moment. Week 2 of the pre-season's coming up. We're playing the Vikings on Saturday night, so they've had some joint practices. But these things unfortunately happen, and it's the NFL. Injuries will occur. Sometimes you feel like you get no luck whatsoever. Sometimes you go on a run of it, but it's about building a roster to prepare yourself as best you can.
Yeah, and speaking of your roster, obviously you got a pretty big name to go opposite Burks in the offseason.
Yeah.
You picked up a rather useful wide receiver. How did you feel about that? Do you think that's kind of changed the outlook, considering, should we say, you may not have the most elite QB? I mean, Tannehill's still going to be QB1 for you guys this year, right?
Yeah, he absolutely is. Yeah, and I think he divided since the Bengals playoff game a couple of years ago, where some Titans fans, not this Titans fan, some Titans fans will put the blame on him for that defeat. I'll put the blame on various things. It was a tight game, and a lot of things didn't go our way. But so it's a bit Marmite. I think he. Partly because of that particular game, but I think he's generally underrated as a quarterback. I think he has generally improved throughout his career, particularly since moving on from the Dolphins. But yeah, it's I mean, going back to DeAndre Hopkins, who you're obviously referring to, that staggered me, to be truthful. I wasn't really sure where we were going. We've got a new general manager in the off season. So John Robinson, our GM for the past 6-7 years, was fired towards the back end of the 2022 season. Obviously, trading AJ Brown to the Eagles was, well, I was going to use the word mistake. That was his decision. Whether AJ forced his way out, whatever the truth of it is, he traded him to the Eagles shockingly on draft day, just sort of a year and a half ago. And that, I don't think he ever recovered from that because we struggled in the 2022 season. The pressure was always going to be on him. So we've now got Ran Carthen, who you'll know well, who's come in as our GM, and I guess it's difficult because you could argue that we're in a state of flux. Maybe it's rebuilding time for the Titans. Maybe Derrick Henry's approaching the twilight of his career. Ryan Tannehill,
he's only got a year left on his contract, hasn't he?
He does. I mean, also he's a running back who's getting on a bit, as durable as he is. He's a freak as far as that position goes, or any position. But I sort of had the impression, and particularly the way we approach free agency and the draft, not going for big sexy names particularly. I had the impression it might be just a take stock kind of year. All right, we're not going to be challenging. Let's just sit take in stock and then rebuild. Ran Carthen's come in. He wants to put his own identity. All sorts of rumors about players being traded, but actually there hasn't been that much of a dramatic change. There were question marks over Derrick Henry and Tannehill. Jeffrey Simmons has now signed a new deal. Kevin Byard, there were rumors of him being traded. He's sticking around. So there haven't been those dramatic changes of the big players. And now we've gone and got Hopkins, which says to me, actually, maybe we're not trying to sit in here. Maybe there's a bit of ambition, or a bit of immediate ambition. And Mike Vrabel as a head coach isn't the kind of guy who will just accept.
Doesn't strike me as a guy who'll just
season. No,
it doesn't. No, it doesn't strike me as the kind of head coach who will just sit there and go, yeah, we'll just do mediocre, or we'll just do, as you say, take the tank or take a bad season, because it just doesn't strike me as that kind of guy who would, sit for that. And that division is pretty wide open. I mean, you've put a run together, a couple of home, win your double headers, you should be okay, right?
I mean, everybody outside the AFC South looks at it like that, and I think a lot of that.
I think that's down to the rest of the AFC though, as well, I suppose, right?
Partly, but actually, I think the Jags are looking terrific. They seem to be heading in the wrong direction for us, but the right direction for them. It's always sort of been the Colts in recent years who are our rivals, but actually the Jags are looking pretty good with Trevor, but more importantly for them, probably Doug Peterson as their head coach. So for the first time in quite a long time, I'd have to go back. I'm not sure exactly, but they won both games against us in 2022. So I think the Jags will be favourites for the division. But yeah, as you say, opportunities are there. How far we can go, I don't know. I've just seen a question on the screen. Do you see Will Levis becoming QB1 this season? I think
have to jump Malik Willis though, wouldn't it? I mean, you'd have to get ahead of Malik. Is that?
Well,
he's ahead of Malik
he's ahead of Malik in my eyes. Malik, how much you read into this, I don't know. He started the preseason game against the Bears at the weekend, but he shared it with Will Levis. So who's ahead of who in the pecking order? I don't think we really know. I'm not a Malik Willis fan. I'll be honest. I don't think the word is he's improved in the off season. I just don't see it. I still see a bit of a rabbit in headlights. Will Levis he's raw. He's a giga in NFL terms than Malik. So we'll see what he can do. I could see him being the QB2. That would be my prediction. But we've got a couple more preseason games to go that we'll all overanalyze, and every single play. It's always a limited sample size, but they'll work a. That would be my guess, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It would, but obviously him becoming QB1, I mean, it needs one or two things to happen. That either Ryan Tannehill goes down injured, or the season goes south, and it just gets to the point where let's
throw him in to see what they've got,
see what he can do. Yeah, absolutely. But ideally, him sitting behind Ryan Tannehill, because I mean, not everyone's a fan of Levis coming out of college, but he did fall to the top of the second round, which nobody really expected. And I think he's a great value pick from there, for sure. So I would have been happy to take him higher. Yeah.
It was definitely one of those. He was in front of you, and you just kind of had to hang on, this is too good a pick to not take now if he's fallen here. As you say, sitting behind Tannehill, who's been around the block, good mentor, will be able to learn from. As you say, Willis had his. Should we say he had his opportunities last year and did look a little, deer in the headlights, untested, didn't really seem to make that sort of progression that you would expect. He struck me as a very raw Mariota type, he run first, think about pocket and everything later. And that might have worked at college, but it's not going to work in the NFL. And I think he got found out a little bit, last year.
It feels, I mean, I love Marcus Mariota for what it was worth. Feels a harsh comparison, but I see what you're getting at. I absolutely do. It just, you could see the talent. It's whether there's enough there between the ears, or whether
it's just whether the athleticism is the strongest point that he has, I suppose.
Yeah, but just to be, it's not even being. Making stupid decisions, which can be kind of coached. It's that I just sort of see, no decisiveness. He's not even making bad decisions. He's just
not.
By the time he's
anything.
decided what to do, he's sacked, or he's had to do something. Yeah, exactly. And you want, it sounds a silly thing to say, but you'd rather your QB does something silly but owns it than that just doesn't do anything, which is what we saw. The preseason.
We'll come back to that from my preseason game, because that was very much the overriding beat writer Twitter feel on that one. Paul, your thoughts on that one? Obviously, I think the Jags being probably favourite for the AFC South, it's probably fair considering the Peterson effect.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and we're on our show, Good Teams and Great Teams, we're about to do our AFC South preview in the next few days, so we'll take a look at the odds. But good transition. But yeah, I think the Titans have owned that division really, haven't they? The past, I know you look at kind of the past 6-7 years. What was it? 5 of the last 7 AFC South that the Titans have won, and it just feels like there is a power shift now across to the Jaguars, and that's primarily in the form of Coach Doug Peterson. The Titans feel like they've been so close in terms of having a team capable of putting a real championship run together, but the injuries have just been a killer, haven't they, these last couple of seasons? There was 23 that were on injured reserve last year, which was by far and away the highest most any team in the NFL had. And I think it's difficult where...
Is that all? It seemed like more.
It seemed more, yeah.
It seemed like more to you, but I think I'm going to take the Paul's done the stat check on that one. But it did look like it was half your team at the time. That was just you were expecting guys to play offense and defense at some point, considering how many you had out.
The stat, and it's 2 years in a row that as well.
Yes.
There was a stat from the 2021 season that we had more players, more active players on our roster than any other team in history. Now I know the IR rules have changed to make it easy to do that, so that skews it, but it was staggering. It was 90-something players that were on the active roster during the season, which is ludicrous.
Yeah. And I think when you were talking there about Malik Willis, I think it's real difficult to assess him, given kind of this situation that the Titans have been found in. And look, nobody's going in. No young quarterback is going to go into a perfect situation in the NFL anymore. I don't think, the days of having someone sit for 2, 3, 4 years are gone. We've seen it with the Colts have named Richardson starter already. Jordan Love's probably the first in a long while where we're going to have seen.
Yeah, I was just going to say him. Yeah, he's actually had he's had the graduation, sit, watch, learn. He's had the old school sort of thing. But I think you're right. Anyone who's going, Trey Lance being a prime example, the ones that went this year, literally thrown in because the franchises have put so much into it, and being a first, second, third pick or whatever else comes with so much pressure that the fans are like, you drafted him, you got put him in. What's he got? So I think as it goes down to what you're saying, getting Levis as late as you did will the pressure build on if Tannehill's not doing it? Willis is QB3. Will there be an upswell of throw him in to see what he's got?
Yeah, I think Levis as well I was one of the ones pretty critical of Levis in his college career, and I've been shouting pretty loud in our pre-draft coverage of I wouldn't touch him with a barge pole sort of approach. I think he's so scattergun. He's got accuracy issues. His feet are awful. I've got a lot of bad things to say about Will Levis, but there's a positive coming out.
There is a silver lining somewhere.
What I would just say on that is everybody before the draft analysing Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, all of the QBs, they were all supposed to be taken in the sort of top 6 picks. So we were all assessing Will Levis based on being like a top 6 or top 10 pick in the draft, and now he's top of the second. It feels like there won't be that immediate pressure to immediately to be elite. So you could justify sitting him for a while. It's easier to do, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You haven't given up the house to draft someone like that. So I'm kind of happy with how it went. If we'd taken Levis with the 4th overall pick, I'd be spitting feathers.
I think he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder as well, Will Levis, kind of what happened to him draft night as well, because there was that hype and expectation around him going in the first round, kind of having to sit all the way through there. You saw the pictures. But I think he's a project. I think ultimately is the point I was getting to. He's a project, and he may benefit from not just 1 year, maybe 2 years. And if sitting behind Tannehill, it's just, does that pressure come if the season doesn't go to plan? And they're out of playoff contention early, to throw him in. I think throwing him in year 1 could be the worst thing that happens for Will Levis, because I just don't think he's ready. Everything I've seen would suggest he's not ready, and I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination, but everything I've seen would suggest he's not ready, and it'd be detriment to him, I think, to throw him in early. So we'll see. But I'm a huge fan of Coach Vrabel, and I think Coach Vrabel ultimately will always give your team a chance. And as much as we're saying kind of the Jaguars are probably favourites, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes down to the wire again between the Titans and the Jaguars for the division.
Yeah.
What you're saying, you mentioned Coach Vrabel there, and he's possibly the biggest factor that the Titans have got in a way, and I think it's supporting a not particularly fashionable team. You don't always have a sense of a star player within the building or within Nashville or within Titans fan base isn't necessarily appreciated around the NFL or sort of on the global stage. Coach Vrabel, I put in that category. He's pretty much the best coach in the league. I'm not even saying that as a stretch. He doesn't do losing, and he gets pretty angry if losing happens, and he's not the sort of like he will make any team better than the sum of his parts. And given if somebody else at the helm, I mean, look at the Jags, the change between, obviously it's not rocket science to say that Urban Meyer and Peterson are going to be different, but Vrabel has that effect. You could look at a roster that might seem mediocre on paper, but they won't play mediocre with his coaching. We always feel that he's got one over his opposite number tactically, or he's got something up his sleeve. There was a game when he first came in. Second game he ever coached was a home game against the Houston Texans, and Mariota, as is his wont, had gone down injured the previous week, and Blaine Gabbert started this game. And we're looking at this, and this was the Texans with Hopkins, with Deshaun Watson firing under all cylinders when the Texans were a really decent side. And we're looking at this, we're just going to get absolutely battered. And first drive, 3 and out. Fake punt for a touchdown, and he came out with a couple of trick plays, and it was just enough to keep us in it. And we won that game by sort of 20-17, something like that, and in spite of Blaine Gabbert at quarterback. And it was just every little thing that he could conjure and come up with, and it just
to get that win.
It blew us, and we thought, hang on, just expecting to be humiliated. You thought, actually, this guy doesn't do humiliation. Not if you can help it. So it's just it's a big X factor.
Yeah. So it's a kind of coach that can almost guarantee you 2 wins from a losing position, or something. You'll get something out of a team that you shouldn't possibly get.
The job he's done the last couple of seasons, and with the challenges that the Titans have faced, I think he's probably gone unrecognized. Maybe I don't know if that's fair, because I think to keep the Titans competitive with everything that they've had to face the last couple of years, with the amount of players, with the injuries, I think he's done an incredible job. And I agree with you. I don't know if it might be the best, but he's certainly one of the best coaches in the NFL. And I think even I'd run through a wall for Coach Vrabel. I think he's just that kind of guy, isn't he? And I think ultimately the Titans will be competitive again in 2023, and just with Coach Vrabel at the helm. Whether that's enough to win the division, I don't know, but they will not be far away.
Yeah.
I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Just moving on a little bit specifically from the Titans talk there, we're just going to delve into a bit of general sort of NFL news. Obviously, there's been a few running back signings which have kind of moved around. Some of the veterans have swapped around a bit. What do you make of which one do we start? Zeke to the Patriots. How does that kind of take us by surprise? Is he a Belichick kind of running back? Has it surprised me, because I thought Stevenson was a shoehorn for the workhorse role at the Patriots there.
I'll jump in on Zeke if that's all right. First up, just to see.
Thought you might somehow.
From the Cowboys, yeah. I was sad to see him go. I think Zeke will be. I think he's got a role at the Patriots, and I think you're going to see him in just short yardage situation, goal line situations, where he was really, really effective, and he has been really, really effective for Dallas the last couple of years. So that's where I'd expected to see him. If there's somebody to go get me a yard, give it to Zeke. And I think he's just gonna maybe just complement Stevenson, and Stevenson's been shown he's a fantastic workhorse running back, and I just think Zeke's that complement of maybe where you can just kind of give Stevenson a little bit of a rest, a little bit of a break, and maybe you don't have to kind of put as much tread on his tires, so to speak. But I think he'll provide the Patriots with a great option, and I would fully expect to see Bill Belichick use him really effectively as well.
Yeah. And then Adam, I guess coming to you, think about the other one. The Jets have bolstered an already pretty stocked roster by picking up Dalvin Cook. I mean, that's got to hurt from an AFC perspective, just in general, right?
I mean, the AFC's so stacked as it is. It's hard to notice any difference. But great. It shows the Jets' level of ambition, I think.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook, I think, has still got a lot left in his tank. It's funny how you mentioned Zeke going to the Patriots. Zeke's drafted 2016 is the same, which is the same as Derrick Henry, but obviously he's not what Zeke's a more obvious decline. And Tony Pollard, obviously last year was far more prolific, but he's still got something to offer. I think Dalvin Cook's got more to offer than Zeke, or a lot more to offer than Zeke. Still, he's had injuries, but I think it feels like the right kind of move. And the Jets have Breece Hall, as great as he looked, he had that injury last year. It shows that they're not sitting in. They feel, obviously, without Aaron Rodgers, goes without saying that they're not there for just a good time, are they? They're there to they're serious about Super Bowl ambitions, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Hard Knocks is flying around. I'm not sure if you managed to catch it and whatever else. There does seem to be a real push from inside the Jets. I saw a clip where Salah was calling out accountability on the offense.
Another fantastic head coach, by the way.
Sure.
Who again, another example of where him coming in, you could see the immediate difference that makes.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers defense, when he was, when it's there, they would literally, as you mentioned, Paul, run through walls, smash down. They would just not stop running, and he brought that into the Jets, and you saw that defense did the same. And their defense it's pretty stacked. It's a pretty fast, as Salah says, it's all gas, no brakes. It's all go all the time. I mean, that's a horrible defense to be facing. They're just going to be swarming everywhere. I can't see a better sort of D put together, although I suppose the Miami one's not too bad either. So there's a couple of good defenses that have been put together in the AFC. But yeah, as you say, the Jets definitely look like the Aaron Rodgers signing has sparked something. I don't know what it is. They feel that, with that defense, they need to go and put an offense together that can at least stick with it or close the gap, because I think it was such a disparity between how good their D was and how average, I think is the nicest way of putting it, their offense was last year.
That is nice. I think that's nice.
That was really
sorry to Jets fans watching, but it was disgusting at times, that offense, wasn't it? But between kind of Mike White, Joe Flacco, Zach Wilson.
Are we saying Aaron Rodgers is better than those guys? I mean,
Aaron Rodgers' leg is probably better than those three, isn't it?
Aaron Rodgers left-handed. But yeah, there's a window now, isn't there? I think, and there's an urgency behind kind of what the New York Jets are doing. You've kind of probably got Rodgers for 3 seasons maybe. And the piece we saw a couple of weeks ago where he's just taking a pay cut, hasn't he? Just to really stick it to the Green Bay Packers, to take that kind of drop off and give the Jets a bit of a war chest to go and go sign these guys. If these guys are going to crop up during kind of this time of year, we will inevitably see some action of some cuts and some people that get cut that you will be real surprised about from teams, and the Jets will be there ready waiting to snap somebody up. I think there's probably some O-line support they could talk about Bakhtiari, but yeah, there's probably another tackle there they could go get, but they put themselves in a position that if the right move comes up for them, they can go and make it. And yeah, I think that they are all in. The time is now for the New York Jets, and it'll be interesting to see if it is. I mean, there's so much excitement around the New York Jets. Hard Knocks is a bit of a factor behind that, but yeah, they're going to be good, aren't they? They're going to be really good.
They're going to be good television, right? They're going to be good television because it's East Coast. They've got the New York sort of, the media are all over it. Aaron Rodgers is media darling. They've got a Friday night. They've got the Black Friday game, I think, as well, haven't they? So, they've got all of the stars that are aligning for the Jets having a fairy tale sort of, NFL story type year, isn't it? You can expect that they're already filming it for that sort of special year film at the end.
It's a tough division, that AFC East.
Yeah.
How are we now in a world where the Pats are propping up that division, arguably?
It's bizarre from anybody who's watched the NFL for the last 10 years to think that the Patriots are the worst team in the AFC East, and it's like
they'll probably prove us wrong now. But
totally, because Belichick will, Belichick and Zeke will just run all over everybody or something crazy. Yeah. But I suppose that's the beauty of the NFL, isn't it? That's the drafting, the free agency, the ability for teams to go from, as we mentioned earlier, worst to first, or at least, rebuild slowly. Yes, there might be years where you're not doing so well, but if you draft well and you manage your capital and stuff like that, suddenly 2 or 3 years, a quick turnaround and it's there. So, and it's one of the things that, does bring that difference to a sport from a UK perspective. It's not something you see in the UK. It's all from the soccer perspective. And I'll use the word soccer because we're talking football here. It's money talks. You go out and buy the biggest player. You go out and buy. If you're successful and you win, then you get more money, and therefore you go and buy the best players and you continue winning. Whereas the NFL, the competitive edge is inherent in the way it's set up, which I think is why a lot of UK fans are drawn to it and watch it, and and stay up until 4 a.m. in the morning watching this crazy sport.
Are you prepared? How are you guys doing? Are you prepared? Have you started getting in your pre-season for the late nights?
Yeah. Already staying up late, getting the coffees in. My sister-in-law gave me a new coffee cup the other day. It literally holds a litre of coffee. It's like this big. It's like, that's my football cup ready.
One of the benefits is it must be worse for you, the 49ers being a West Coast team where even the Sunday games are generally later, but the best thing that's come out of a mediocre 2022 season is just 2 prime
6 o'clock kickoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think last season we maybe had 4 or 5. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not the age where I can stay up anymore. It's setting that alarm for 1:15 and having like 2 truncated nights sleep in one.
Definitely power napping.
Yeah.
Brutal, yeah.
That works for me. Although,
I have to do
this year's brutal. This year's
brutal
brutal for the Niners. This year is brutal for Niners fans.
I have to do the record and get up early and watch it, and no Twitter check-in. I'm really good. I'm in a good routine with it. I never see the score beforehand. No, the phone. Do not touch the phone, and watch it before work. Now the Cowboys have a lot of primetime games, so but it's when it's Sunday night football, Monday night football, Thursday night football. Let's record it up really early before work and get it watched.
So it's a brave move for the notification side of things.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't not watch the Titans game when it was on. But the other games, the game in 40 is I think Monday, Tuesday, and Friday breakfasts. Watching the game in 40 or whatever.
Is that available this year? Or do we want to touch on Dazin? Do we want to go into because I don't know, I don't know whether or not anyone in the US is aware of just the absolute hideousness which seems to have happened with the death of Game Pass from the international NFL's perspective, and an offering that could only be described as raw from DAZN, I think. It seems that you won't be getting an awful lot of the functionality that we've come used to, the gaming. I don't know, the All 22 is probably not going to be available on that platform. There seems to be international fans certainly seem to be getting short shrift in terms of what's going on. Yeah, and as Matt said, there we go. I mean, how do you feel about it?
Game Pass beef? Yeah, from what I've heard, the game in 40 will be there, I believe. The key thing, so this is entirely selfish, but is it needs to be there in time for when I get up and have breakfast. I mean, I don't care about what anyone else does, but as long as it's been uploaded in time for that, then I'm good.
But apparently it's only there for 7 days as well, though, right?
Really?
Yeah, it's a 7-day window you've got. I think that's it.
I mean, should be enough. But if you want to go back and watch old games every now and again, or I sometimes do, I think what happened, like your mind might suddenly remember a game from 2 years ago, and you go back and watch an old highlight. Maybe that's not available anymore.
A team that's coming up in 2 or 3 weeks' time, you want to kind of have we played those a couple of years ago. How did it go? Type thing. I don't think you got that option. So yeah, there's been an awful lot of uproar in the UK about it in the NFL UK group. I don't know if you've seen that on Facebook. A lot of people complaining. Obviously, the subscription-based model, which everyone was paying in 4 quarterly installments. Then DAZ had come along and went, yeah, we'll take it all in one go. So a lot of people suddenly saw all the money leave their bank accounts in one hit rather than staying the same. And, the promises of it will just be the same. It will just, the first year will just be the same seems to have gone out the window. So a lot of upset people in the UK about that. But I guess it's pre-season, so, we haven't really seen it in full effect. But I know a lot of the complaints have been around the loss, if you like, of the State Farm, Liberty, and all the other commercials that, one of the reasons we stay up, one of the reasons that we watch it is to see some of those sort of odd US commercials, and it allows us to understand, I think, from a UK perspective, a lot of the discussions around football. Some of the comments and some of the stuff that you see on social media, which are of the moment. Maybe there is a popular advert out there, or the Geico Gecko. I don't think if we didn't see the adverts, we probably wouldn't understand a lot of that. Or the Bud Light Dilly Dilly would have passed all of the UK fans by if we didn't have the adverts, right? And now that might be come this season, if the DAZN don't show the adverts, we might lose out on that little added extra. Just a thought.
I want to keep tabs on what Baker Mayfield's up to at home in his massive stadium.
It is a huge empty Cleveland Browns stadium. Wait, is it the Tampa Stadium? Bucks Stadium now, right? Yeah.
It's the Pirates, yeah. It's an interesting one, the coverage in general. So I'll be careful what I say, because I work for the company that shows the majority of the NFL games in the UK. So I'll be careful what I say. But from that Game Pass perspective, and it's not just happening, I suppose, in the NFL. I'm sure plenty of the guys in the UK as well, big college football fans as well. We've seen
TNT are not doing it.
Mm-hmm. What's happening with TNT? So I've been trying to find out, and it doesn't look like they're going to carry it. So it just feels that while the game's growing in here, and what we're seeing from the NFL, from the London games perspective, etc., and then it's just going the other way completely with coverage, and we're getting access to less and less, which just seems odd. You'd want to give access to more and more to get more and more fans, more and more invested. So it just seems an odd approach, and especially the BT. I keep on saying BT Sports because I've got City on in the background on TNT Sports in a minute, but it seems odd with them, given they partner with, I think, Discovery Plus as a streaming service. Why you wouldn't keep the rights? It just seems an odd one. I wonder if that might be one that gets done the week of, maybe, and they decide to have.
We only got 10 days to go, though, right? So, I mean, with everything that's going on in the college game, and the change from the Big 10 to the Big 9,
we had it,
all that.
Do you remember about 12 years ago? We had it with before Game Pass was as big as it is, and probably, I don't know if it existed at the time, but the Sky deal didn't get done until about a day before the season. Do you remember?
There was a period where we couldn't watch football.
Yeah, I think it got done literally the Friday or the Saturday before week one. Before it's literally the day before the season started, and the Sky deal got renewed, but the contract had lapsed, and it felt like there was a chance we were just going to get nothing. And obviously for college football, it's now that's the situation.
It's certainly looking that way now, yeah.
So you think someone's going to pick it up because they would want the global audience. They want the exposure. So it might not
certainly want it in the UK, at least, because they play a college game every year in Dublin. There's the Notre Dame. I can't help myself. I always call it, I put the European slant on it, but the Notre Dame Navy. I think, is it Notre Dame? I think it's Navy.
It's next week, isn't it? Yeah, it's
next week. So and I know the Seminoles are coming over next year, so I'm already looking to get a ticket for that. But if suddenly, you lose that market, you lose that sort of, I like NFL. There's college football. Everyone keeps talking about college and draft. It's an obvious sort of route. Why is the NCAA allowing this? Are they aware, or is the NCAA football in too much of an internal mess with the changes in the conferences and whatever else to have missed the trick here and not realize that their international sort of broadcast license has gone by the by?
Yeah, I mean the TNT guys, or BT as it was, did actually. There's so many games you could watch on a Saturday.
They're everywhere.
Friday night, you were spoiled for choice. It seems an odd one, just with kind of the state of the game in the UK and how the sport as a whole is trying to grow globally.
Yeah, it's interesting as Matt just pulled out, because I think Matt just watched last week or maybe the week before. We mentioned it, that it seemed like the German market seems to be the shiny new object for the NFL, and now, as we say, the college game's getting a little bit by the by. The Game Pass is gone. Has the NFL switched its laser focus to a bigger market, they think, in Germany, and therefore the UK get a lesser offering because we're already hooked and they've got us already? I think it's, who knows. Another good news story, I suppose, this week. Damar Hamlin's back in pads. That was I think he's a shoe-in probably for comeback player of the year. I think just from a sheer emotional point of view, he's going to get that vote, right?
Well, it definitely won't be the Sean Watson, will it? So
too soon, Paul. Too soon.
Is it this kind of show? Is it that kind of show?
Oh, it is now. Well, it is now.
But yes, great to see Damar Hamlin. Yeah, I think it was just such a scary visual, wasn't it? Him going down in that kind of week 17 game. So yeah, brilliant to see. I think he played the preseason game, did he? I think he played some snaps on the field. Yeah,
he's on. Yeah.
Which is brilliant, and yeah, just obviously from where he was in January to now, it's a remarkable turnaround. And yeah, shoo-in for comeback player of the year, and it's going to be a real important piece to that Bill secondary ultimately. And
was growing into it beforehand, before the issue, wasn't he? I mean, he was definitely becoming that sort of leader on the field, a guy who put his body on the line. I think from a UK perspective, and my personally, it was because it was a nothing. It just seemed a bit of a nothing incident, right? It was innocuous, kind of just a normal tackle that you see all the time, and it was like, what happened there? Obviously hearing about it, and it brought to mind for me sort of Fabrice Muamba going down on the football pitch and stuff like that. It was all of that sort of, and we know how serious and whatever else that was. So kudos to him to still have the drive to get back on the field, I suppose, as well. I mean, that's another thing that's as you say, makes him a shoe-in, because you could quite easily have just gone, such a freak accident happened, and we all know the story. He got hit at the 1 in a million time. His heart was just in the wrong sort of beat, and it was just in the wrong different. And it's like so many things had to go, if you like, right for that hit to have caused what it did. Was just such a freak accident. So to pad up and come back out again is amazing.
Yeah. I couldn't. Would you walking away?
No.
It's hard to relate. Like I'm not a top level sportsman by any means, but just it would be hard to blame him if he's not mentally right. If it's always in the back of his mind from now on, and so much of sport is played between the ears, and like if he's even playing at sort of just 95% commitment to not. I don't mean commitment in how hard he's trying, but just sort of like if something's always in the back of his mind, like is he going to go in for every single tackle at full pelt? And if you're not playing at full pelt, you're going to get found out. And maybe I'm underestimating him. Maybe he'll be absolutely fine. I hope he will. And it's imagine. Yeah. Who's not going to vote for him as comeback player of the year? I mean, get out if that's you.
Get out. Yeah, if that's you, you're going to be found out, because there's going to be everybody and one against, right? And everyone's going to know who that potentially is. So yeah, it'd be an odd one. It's as you say, shoe in for that one. But going back to that, I used to play the game, and when you get to a point in the UK, it becomes like, hang on, if I go full out on full contact on a Sunday, I might not be at work on Monday, because of injuries and whatever else. And this is obviously different for those guys, but you're totally right. Once it's in the back of your mind about, wait, should I? That's when proper injuries happen, because you don't put yourself in the right position and you don't go in. So full credit to him. And I know he's tough. He's from Pittsburgh. He's had a tough upbringing and whatever else, and he's got all that sort of stuff behind him. So I'm sure he's got the drive to get there. So all credit to him. Just quickly, just saying hello to Ian. He's tuning in from Australia. It's a long way away. Good morning to you, Ian. Thanks for tuning in. And then I suppose the other news, if you like, this week, Anthony Richardson's actually been, guaranteed starter for the Colts. What do you think of that one? Who else have they got, right?
I've been enjoying the carousel of their quarterbacks for the last
8 years, I think it is. I think I saw something on Twitter.
Well, some of that's coincidence, because you had Andrew Luck injured and whatever. But it's different starter week one, I think, for so many years in a row.
Yeah, you saw the same one, yeah.
But do you know what? How many years of Peyton Manning? How many years of Andrew Luck in your division? Just absolutely embarrassing you twice every single year. It's been good of late. Richardson might be the best thing they've had for a while, though. So rather than the last 2 or 3 years of trying a vet, so they've tried Phillip Rivers, they've tried Carson Wentz, and Matt Ryan, who actually I thought was maybe a slightly better move, but it didn't even work out as well as the previous two. But Matt Ryan's he's gone to the Colts, and it went so badly he's now in the booth for 2023. But yeah, rather than going for the vet, they've drafted and.
Well, at least they don't have They don't have Jeff Saturday as well, right? They've got rid of him as well, haven't they? It was
Jeff
just
Saturday
comedy.
One win to his name. He has one win to his name.
which is better than some NFL coaches. Let's be honest.
But yeah, it's the right move, isn't it? I mean, what else are they going to do?
Can't even think who else the other quarterback is.
As you said, we're not in a world where sitting a guy is that normal anymore, especially when you've taken him right at the top of the draft. Unless you're the Green Bay Packers who have Favre for 20 years and Rodgers for the next 20, and you can circumstances fall into your lap, then you can't do that. And he's not no one to sit behind really. So
the other option
sink or swim.
The other option is Gardner Minshew, isn't it? That's the other option. And my Anthony Richardson take is very similar to my Will Levis take, where I just don't think he's ready at all. Yes, he's capable of doing some incredible things. There'll be highlight plays of him running over linebackers. There'll be highlight plays of him throwing 60-yard bombs. But then I feel there'll be few and far between, and he's another one that could have done with sitting and developing. But yeah, they just don't have that luxury, do they, the Indianapolis Colts, which is why they had to take him So yeah, I don't know. I think I'd have been taking the more cautious approach of starting Gardner Minshew, who you can get something out of. I think
you'll get some entertainment out of Gardner.
You get some entertainment out of Gardner Minshew, and I think you can win with Gardner Minshew, but. I just think this is Chris Ballard's last stand as GM, I think, in Indianapolis. So if this goes horribly wrong this season, that'll be him.
After Rivers, after Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz, if they go into the season starting Gardner Minshew, the PR's just awful from the start.
It's already bad enough PR with Jonathan Taylor back and forth and that all stuff. So, from a rookie QB, and you've got a stud running back who now has a back injury, and the whole whatever is going on with him and Jim Irsay.
I've been eating a lot of popcorn watching it. I know that.
Absolutely, we're all sitting back going, "Yeah." You, especially from your point of view, Adam, you must be sitting there watching it implode with great gusto and great glee.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, as I say. I'm not going to feel too guilty with all those years of Manning and Luck, as I say. So,
no, absolutely. Excellent. That rounds out our general chat. Paul, you're coming up next. We move to Arlington. We look at the Cowboys, the America's team. Here we go. Not a massive fan, but then again, you wouldn't be anything right. You wouldn't expect anything. So big year for Dak this year. He's already come out saying he won't throw that many interceptions, or he won't throw 10 interceptions this year, which obviously led to many people going, so you'll throw 11 or 12 or 20 or whatever. He won't throw, what was it? He won't throw double figures, which obviously led to so triple figures this year. How do you see Dak?
I'm not going to throw double figures interceptions this year either.
No, it's safe to say. At least we can guarantee, we can mark that down as a guaranteed win for Adam there. Yeah.
We'll preview that on the show as a prop bet, Adam. So I think Prescott, there's a combination of things that kind of just started to go wrong for Dallas down the stretch last year, that then just kind of tumbled into what was the divisional round loss at San Francisco. And as much as, yes, the numbers are bad from a Prescott perspective, from his for the interceptions, actually, there's a few of them interceptions where he's thrown it between the numbers of a tight end through, to the chest of a wide receiver that they've just not caught it. So I don't know. I think they just maybe far too much was made of that, and I think it will. When you're the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, naturally,
you're on every talk show every day. It doesn't matter if you're playing or not.
So I think just way more than that, and actually, I think his general level of play was good. Was good on the main last year. He had the broken thumb to start the year, and Cooper Rush had to come in and win some games for Dallas. But I think when that came back, I thought he played pretty well all throughout, and it kind of culminated in probably the best game he had, which was to go. I know it was a very weak Tampa Bay team, but to go beat the Bucs on the road in the playoffs. There's a few kind of bits there to knock off for Dallas, the first road win in the playoffs for 30 years. So I think on the main good, and it just all went wrong in San Francisco, didn't it? But there's a lot of pressure on Dak though.
Did it? I don't remember.
Yes. Well, look, we talked about Zeke before. Maybe Bill Belichick.
I was going to say, maybe they need a center in.
Maybe he's going to play him center. But yeah,
what's that? 60 seconds in that play came up in this chat.
I mean, to be fair,
it's not bad. We've taken this long. At least I haven't got an image of it to put on the screen. He says, bringing the image up. That would have been too long. It's that one or the Dak run from the year before where he couldn't get down. Yeah, but we won't go into the Niners Cowboys rivalry just yet because we could be in here a long time. So yeah, it's a good year, a big year for him, as you say. I think he's got a few extra weapons now as well. I think the offense is a bit better. Getting Zach Martin paid. Your offensive line who was kind of holding out a bit. I think that's a big step in the right direction.
That was key, and to get kind of Zach Martin back to work, and I think ultimately, but for me, I think he's the best guard in the NFL, and so important on that line for the Cowboys. He is the leader of that line. I think not only is kind of Prescott got a couple of weapons. I'm really excited for Deuce Vaughn. He was taken in the running back taken in the 6th round. Who
is that a really short guy?
Yeah, it looks like a child on the field. He does.
I don't know if you've seen any clips, Adams, but it was. I saw somebody going, "Oh, isn't it sweet that the Cowboys had brought their kids to work day?" type of thing, because there was one clip where he was running and it looked like a high school kid had come on and was running amongst the players.
I think
this is sorry, just a complete tangent here. This makes me think of somebody asked Mike Brable in a press conference about 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. I don't know what the reason was or how it came up, but he got asked how many 5-year-olds would it take to tackle Derrick Henry. And he sort of thought about this, and he came up with the number of 35. And then sort of you think of things about it a bit more. People would literally die.
Yeah.
And what a weird question. Is the images in your head? But the image of that running back is now. Yeah.
So
I think in my mind.
So that's what I'm picturing now is literally a 5-year-old running around a football field. But good luck to him.
Look it up.
Deuce Vaughn's 5. I'm pretty sure he's 5'5" as a running back in the NFL. But I think what he offers is, if you've not seen him, you'll see him a lot in the preseason. He played in the game against Jacksonville. Had a few, obviously, some highlights. But he was unbelievable in that Kansas State team that won their conference last year, and he's electric. He's very elusive, as you should be at 5'5" in the NFL, but very elusive in terms of he kind of get him into space. The natural comparison is Darren Sproles, but if you can get him into space, he's real difficult to bring down. A lot stronger than he looks at 5'5", and just that jolt. And I think he'll balance Tony Pollard really well for Dallas in the backfield. Malik Davis as well there, but yeah, I think he's one to watch, and he'll be a great watch. It'll be very exciting. And I think what they've done as well offensively to go draft and trade and go get Brandon Cooks from the Texans, which should give CeeDee Lamb a bit more support. And the key one for me is Kellen Moore being gone, the offensive coordinator. Yeah. And I've not had a lot of very nice things to say about Kellen Moore over the past few years. I think he's a bit of a flat track bully in terms of Dallas would have, very high ranked offense, number one offense a couple of times, but that's done from beating up on weaker teams. When it came to any sort of half decent teams or the elite teams in the NFL, they couldn't move the ball, as proven. We talked about the San Francisco game. You just couldn't move the ball. So, Mike McCarthy's taken the responsibility on to call the offense. I think it's his last stand that if this doesn't go well for Dallas this year, he will be out on his ear.
Well, Jerry doesn't hang around when it comes to head coaches if they're not doing anything right, and
does not mess about. No. And I think unless the Dallas Cowboys get to the NFC Championship game at a minimum this year, I'd fully expect to see McCarthy gone. I just think it's so difficult. The Eagles and the Niners are just so far ahead of where Dallas are at the minute. I think Dallas are the next one in the NFC behind Philly and the 49ers. But I just think the gap is too much. I think they've closed it. I just don't think they've closed it enough.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is that definite, and we talked about how stacked the AFC is. You can pick 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams easily. You could easily say, well, they're playoff teams. In the NFC, you kind of go Philly, San Fran. Okay, then whoever wins the South, because they're automatically going to get there. Cowboys, Giants, and that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's quite a distinct top 2 and then everybody else, isn't it? Whereas the AFC's got like permanently 1 from 10. So yeah, I think you're right. Dallas have closed that gap a little, but minimum is obviously a deeper playoff run, maybe divisional round at least. NFC Championship, it's a tough ask, I think, when you look at it. But I mean, it's the road's there for them, as you say. Who's going to stop them getting there?
You're going to have to go to get to that NFC Championship game. Realistically, you're going to have to go to Philadelphia or San Francisco and beat them in a playoff game. And I just don't think they're good enough to do that. I really don't. I think Dallas will be a really good team again in terms of, I think they'll win 11, 12 games. And get a wild card spot. I just don't think they'll be doing enough to beat Philly to the division. And then you're going to have to go on the road either again to Philadelphia or to San Francisco and find a way to win, which I just can't see them doing. Defensively, I think they'll be really good again as well. You've got the evolution of Micah Parsons, which continues, which is a scary thought for everybody in the NFL. That boy, Jesus Christ, he's so good. Do
you think him calling himself one of the greatest Hall of Famers was maybe putting a target on his back a little bit too early? Maybe?
I think a little bit. There's a lot of hype around Micah Parsons, but I think there's a bit now where I think for his first 2 years in the NFL, he's just been winning just because of his physical abilities. When he starts to learn how to pass rush with technique and win that way as well, the sky's the limit.
Different level. Yeah. It takes it to the next level, as you say. He has, as a physical beast, he's just basically ball rushed or just sped past people. Now he's learning the cut moves, he's learning how to use his hands better, and it will just open up a whole new level of tackles and sacks, and stats will fly off the roof for him. So I'm still gutted we didn't take him where we could have done if we hadn't have traded for the we may as well talk about the QB at San Francisco. We talked about the preseason. We already kind of alluded to the indecision that you guys was Adam, you were saying about Malik. It was massively on evidence for the 49ers. Trey, I mean, he's not a year 3 QB. I mean, he is, but he's just not. I mean, he's not played football now properly for 4 years, I think it's safe to say, and even that was, NDSU, when he didn't play his senior year, came into the NFL, sat behind Jimmy, got injured, and just looked deer in headlights, as you say, Adam. It's a perfect sort of analogy. Everyone's, ripping him to shreds. Granted, it was a second or third string offensive line that got absolutely bullied by the Raiders defensive line, but didn't help his case one little bit.
I do think on that the preseason is so overanalyzed, and like it's easy to look at that, and you, as you rightly say, a second string O-line. Everybody's putting their second string O-line out in the preseason, and you don't really know until you see the regular season. But how much of Trey Lance have we seen in the regular season in his career? Not
4
much.
games.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't. It's easy to kind of write someone off for a iffy looking performance in the preseason, but you judge him by what happens in September onwards.
And I think he's just, as I say, from my perspective, as a kind of level-headed 49ers fan, which apparently we are out here somewhere. He's had absolutely no chance. He was drafted on his potential. He was taken probably, he didn't choose where he was taken. It was not his decision. The Niners saw something in him. They thought the potential was there. And it's just, one of those things with injuries and whatever else, he's just never had the chance to show. And then who would have foreseen Brock coming in, pick 262 and then, going almost, 8-1, unheard of. So, Trey's just been literally hung out to dry by a lot of the 49ers fans. He's a bust, he's this, he's that, and whatever else. It's like, kids had no chance. He didn't even play in college at a senior level. Brock, played all the way through college. Every year he was a starter at Iowa State. Iowa State, not Idaho State, but Iowa State. He was there. He's played twice as many, maybe 3 times as many games as Trey. So no wonder he stepped in and looked the part, because he'd been playing that position for 4 years, whereas Trey had 2 years, and even that at a slightly lesser school. So it's a hard graft, but as we've said about the pressure coming from a pick that high in the draft, he's got that scrutiny, and unfortunately, it's becoming almost unbearable. I think almost untenable for him. Now everyone's talking about he's actually behind Sam Darnold as QB3 on the roster now. So that's a tough one to take for somebody drafted that high. What do the Niners do with him? Do they try and get something for him? Is there a team out there that would take him? I don't think so.
Who are you still expecting it to be Purdy starting week 1?
Yeah. I think the team expects it. I think Shanahan's already said it. It's, if he's fit, if he's ready to go, he's QB. It's his job to lose, and he did nothing to lose it in the NFC Championship game. It's his. It doesn't seem like the preseason or the training camp was a competition for QB. It was more a competition for QB2.
Teams and the media and fans always look at these problems or their maths. Really, you look at where a player was drafted. You look at how much they get paid. You compare them. So you're comparing Trey Lance with Brock Purdy, and you're constantly fixated on one's Mr. Irrelevant, the other's taken at the top of the pile, and decisions are made on that basis. It sometimes surprises me how much stock is put into, but sometimes years later on where a player was drafted, when actually sometimes you've just got to pay, you've just got to offer the contracts to whoever the best option is, and the same with who starts for you. If a mistake's happened, it's happened. You can't just play somebody because they were drafted way ahead of somebody else if they're not the best guy for the job, and it's stubbornness comes into it, doesn't it?
Does a little bit, and he wouldn't be the first high drafted player that didn't work out. I mean, there's endless, endless first round drafters and number one picks, and that never got anywhere. So it's harsh on him. I don't think he's being classed as a bust and everything else is harsh because he's never really had the opportunity. But the pressure comes with that, and as you say, it's just pure maths in the end.
But you could judge John Lynch on this, or criticize him for what's happened with this, but then look at the opposite. Look at Purdy. So has he not pulled a rabbit out of the hat with that? So it's
a swings and roundabouts. Definitely a swings and roundabouts. I mean, and the worst case scenario for Trey is that he keeps getting, people keep digging up. So we traded him to Miami. Look who Miami got for these, and it's like Jalen Waddle. They traded for Tyreek Hill, and it's like, hang on, that's a harsh. Hindsight's a wonderful thing when you look back on stuff. So it is a tough one for the kid. I really feel for him.
I will always enjoy the fact that Jared Goff, taken by the Rams at the top of the 2016 draft, who had the number one pick that year, the Tennessee Titans, one of the picks that was traded, Derrick Henry. That should have been a Rams pick. And I will look back on that with pleasure every time it comes up, and you'll see all the. And
every time you realise the Rams are still paying Goff, even though he's playing, they're still paying for him to go and win a division for Detroit.
But that's what happens. So the draft, you can't get everything
right,
right,
isn't it?
Totally, it really is.
Super, gents. I know we've kind of slightly run over time. We've kind of covered all sorts of bits and pieces. Before we start to wrap up, telling people to go and hit subscribe, do all the thumbs up on the Let's Talk Sport YouTube channel. Adam, do you want to give us a quick, brief rundown of who you are and where you come from?
Okay, Stiller. There's a nice.
There's a reference. There's a nice reference. Who gets that one? Who can pull the screen back and let's have a look?
I'm Adam. As you said at the top, I do the Transatlantic Titans podcast. I also do another podcast called the Long Snapper podcast. Both I know who both of our listeners are for that, so that I won't worry about that too much. Big Titans fan. Very excited about the fact that we get to play a game in Tottenham this year, obviously. Mm-hmm. So very much looking forward to that.
Guess a fair few of you are piling down there then, are you?
Yeah, well, in my case, it's about 10 minutes on the train, so it's perfect. We'll be... Well, people are coming over from America to watch it. We've got a lot of fans in Germany, obviously, let alone the UK, all corners of the UK. There are... That first game we had in 2018, it's incredible how many Titans fans came out of the woodwork that I never knew existed. Before that, I thought there were 10 of us. So we've at least...
it's great. There seems to be a theme. We've all had that sort of epiphany moment where we kind of go, there are more than like 5 or 6 weirdos. There are quite a few people who support this team. It's quite nice, isn't it?
But yeah, the Transatlantic Titans thing, I mean, that's built up. We were a Facebook group 10 years ago that literally did have 10 members, and now there's a Twitter account with something like nearly 2,000 followers in this podcast, and there's a really nice community there. And yeah, every time which will hopefully be a regular thing when a game comes around here, it's really exciting. So the team might not be. We'll see. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But it'd be great to see them in the flesh anyway.
Absolutely. And again, thanks for jumping on here and talking Titans. It's been great to have you. And hopefully, you're open to coming back a bit later on with a bit of maybe a review of the season as things progress.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Super. Paul, give us a shout. Where are you at? Where can we find you?
Yeah, thank you. So I have a podcast called Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. You can find us on Spotify. We have our own YouTube channel, Twitter account, which are both at GTW_GTC, also on Instagram. And yeah, we do a weekly show. And as we're getting towards the season now, so that'll be back focused on all things gambling for the NFL. So come along if you fancy a flutter, fancy a pick or two, come and give us a listen. We also kind of do some work on some interviews, division previews, all that stuff. And our most recent episode, if you get a chance, guys, please go check it out. I got to sit down and interview 28-year NFL O-line coach, Jim Mouse McNally. Sit down and interview him last week. And that was a brilliant conversation. More because of Coach McNally, not me.
It's like why this has been such a great show because you two and I'm just kind of sat here going, I don't know what I'm doing.
He got to speak with you. It's a moment of his life. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm sure that's what he's thinking.
All his friends about it. But yeah, to sit down with Coach McNally, who had just some amazing stories to tell. He was at the Bengals in the 80s with the teams that they had, being able to coach Anthony Munoz, who was probably the greatest offensive lineman to ever play in the NFL, just be able to pick his brains and talk to him was brilliant. So yeah, that interview's out. It's available on Spotify. It's available on our YouTube as well. So go check it out. Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover.
Nice. You're well versed at that. That's very, very impressive, very professional. It's a lot better than what I'm doing. So yeah, great. Appreciate that, Adam. I appreciate Paul for your time. Thanks so much for jumping on the show. As I say, the boys will be back next week. I'm out next week, so one of the guys, either Matty, Alec, or probably I think Paul's back from holiday, so he'll be picking up the hosting duties for next week. But until then, please do go on the YouTube channel. Please find us on Twitter. It's Let's Talk Sport. You like, subscribe, hit the buttons. They're all down the bottom there. Do what you need to do. We really need to push the network for Dan. He's working hard in the background for us, and we love him. I know he's been watching and he's been in the chat and in the comments. So take care of yourself, Dan. Until next time, folks, this has been NFL from around the UK. Thanks for watching.